I've decided that 2025 is going to be the year that I read books about motherhood. If you've clicked on this video thinking that this is going to be books for expectant mothers or for people who are already mothers, books about what to expect when you're expecting and parenting, etc., that's not what this video is. So apologies. There will be some books in here about pregnancy and things, but it's not really about that. It is more about the concept of mothering and motherhood and what it means to be a mother. The reason I'm doing this is because last year I accidentally read a lot of books about grief. And it became of interest to me to see the ways that books talk to one another and the things that you can get out of books that are doing that, books on a similar topic. And so I decided that this year I wanted to do that more intentionally. I chose motherhood because I have read some books about motherhood, some of the popular ones. I have read Boulder by Eva Baltazar and Stillborn by Guadalupe Nettle. They're not the only ones, but they're the ones I had on my shelves. But I definitely have, if someone has said a book about motherhood, I have then avoided reading it in the past. In part, I think this is women don't just have to read and write books about motherhood. It's not necessarily the most interesting thing about women. And in part, I'm just not super interested in the topic, or haven't been in the past at least. But I don't know if it's my age. I'm now in my 30s. A lot more of my friends are becoming mothers now, and also I've kind of gotten over that kind of ick about motherhood, and I'm now like, well, no, women don't only have to write about mothers or only be mothers, but it is a big part of the conceptualization of womanhood from our culture and a big part of life for many women. And so it can still be an interesting topic, the ways that you have to become a mother and the ways that it is not necessarily as natural a category as it seems to be at first glance. So I have several different books I want to read. As I said at the beginning, they're not going to be for expectant mothers. These are mostly some fiction, some memoir, some kind of political books about motherhood. That I am interested in reading. This is not necessarily a TBR that I'm definitely going to get to this year, but this is the vibe of the books about motherhood that I am intending to read. So if you have any recommendations that fit into this kind of vibe, do let me know in the comments down below. So we're going to start with fiction, and the first one on my list is The Lost Daughter by Elena Ferrante. I haven't read any Ferrante, and I know most people start with the Neapolitan Quartet, but I believe that's much more about friendship, female friendship, than it is about motherhood. The Lost Daughter is about a woman who is devoted to her work as an English teacher and her 2 children. When her daughters leave home to be with their father in Canada, Lida anticipates a period of loneliness and longing. Instead, slightly embarrassed by the sensation, she feels liberated, as if her life has become easier. She goes on holiday by the sea, but after a few days, things take a menacing turn. Lida encounters a family whose brash presence unsettles her. And when an incident occurs, she is overwhelmed by small and seemingly inconsequential decisions she made as a mother, and a confrontation with an unsettled past. Now, I know lots of people love Ferrante's writing, or the translation of Ferrante's writing, and I'm intrigued to see if that's something that I resonate with as well. And also this clearly is a much more unsettling, dark look at motherhood rather than a straightforward sort of ideal motherhood tale. It sounds, from what I hear about Ferrante as well, her plots can be a bit like dramatic, melodramatic, and the kind of sinister uncovering of the past, I think, sounds really interesting. Next, another one that I've seen lots of people talking and raving about, we have Is Mother Dead by Vigdis Hjorth, and I believe that this one either won or at least was shortlisted for the International Booker Prize. The translation is by Charlotte Barsland. Oh, and the description of this one kind of reminds me a little bit of another book about motherhood that I have read, which is Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi. It has a similar sort of difficult fraught relationship between mother and daughter, and a kind of sinister, thriller-esque feeling to the tone. A recently widowed woman is back in Oslo after a long absence as she prepares for a retrospective of her art. The subjects of her work, motherhood, and some of the more controversial paintings have brought about a dramatic rift between parent and child. This new proximity, after decades of acrimonious absence, sets both women on edge, and before too long, Johanna Johanna finds her mother stalking her thoughts, and Johanna starts stalking her mother's house. Like I said, fairly sinister, difficult relationship. I think a general theme on these books is either they are about mother-daughter relationships, like this one, or about a mother coming to terms with her own experience of motherhood, like the Elena Ferrante. Another one that I've seen all over the place and that I really, really like the cover of is Mother Thing by Ansley Hogarth. I really like the kind of pop-arty cover of this one. Ralph and Amy Lamb move in with Ralph's mother, Laura. Abby hopes it's just what she and her mother-in-law need to finally connect. After a traumatic childhood, Abby is desperate for a mother figure, especially now that she and Ralph are trying to become parents themselves. Abby just has so much love to give. But Laura isn't interested in bonding with her daughter-in-law. She's venomous and cruel, especially to Abby. When Laura takes her own life, her ghost haunts Abby and Ralph in very different ways. Ralph is plunged into depression, and Abby is terrorised by a force intent on destroying everything she loves. Abby comes up with a chilling plan that will help her to rescue Ralph from his tortured mind and break Laura's hold on the family for good. All it requires is a little ingenuity, a lot of determination, and a unique recipe for chicken a la king. So it sounds like there's something kind of horrific about this, kind of supernatural, and also like a dark plan, and I definitely enjoy a little literary horror, which I think is the side that this will fall on. Next we have one of my favourite authors, Hilary Mantel, and the book Every Day is Mother's Day, which is actually the first in a series about a family. I am trying also this year to read the rest of the Hilary Mantel books that I haven't read so far. So it's good that one overlaps with my attempt to read more books about motherhood. Evelyn Axon is a medium by trade. Her daughter Muriel is a half-wit by nature. Barricaded in their crumbling house, surrounded by the festering rubbish of years, they defy the curiosity of their neighbours and their social worker, Isabel Field. Isabel is young and inexperienced and has troubles of her own, an elderly father who wanders the streets, and a lover, Colin, who wants her to run away with him. But Colin has 3 horrible children and a shrill wife who is pregnant again. How is he going to run anywhere? As Isabel wrestles with her own problems, a horrible secret grows in the darkness of the Axon household. When it at last comes to light, the result is by turns hilarious and terrifying. So again, a little darkness here, a little domestic horror, but also it's written by Hilary Mantel, whose writing I absolutely adore. She is a very darkly comic writer, which is one of the things I really love about her. So the fact that it is hilarious and horrifying, I think means that it is something that I'm really going to enjoy. Beloved by Toni Morrison is one that I've been meaning to read for a very long time. I know everyone loves Toni Morrison, and I definitely need to read some of her works. I've never read anything she has written. And I feel like she will be a writer for me, with that kind of slight magical realism and the fact that she is often considered to be one of the best writers of all time. And so many people have told me to read her, like Ebony Kane and Nathan from Nathan's Nook and Bibliosophie. Everyone's telling me I need to read Toni Morrison, so hopefully this year I actually will get around to it. Sethi was born a slave and escaped to Ohio, but 18 years later she is still not free. Sethi has too many memories of Sweet Home, the beautiful farm where so many hideous things happened. And Sethi's new home is haunted by the ghost of her baby, who died nameless and whose tombstone is engraved with a single word. This is obviously a book about slavery and the cruelties inflicted upon people and how those cruelties corrupted relationships like that between a mother and her child. It's going to be a very, I'm sure, a very sad, harrowing read, but one, as I've said, that I know I need to get to. The only one that I actually already own is Mother's Boy by Patrick Gale. This is in fact a proof that this came out in March 2022, and I still haven't read the proof, so definitely need to get to it. I don't know if there's actually a description of the book in here. Yes, there is. And this is a book about mothers written by a man, which men have a relationship with mothers, so it's not that they can't write about it, but I think it's the only one on this list. Laura, a poor Cornish girl, meets her husband in Tynemouth in 1916. They have a baby, Charles, but Laura's husband returns home from the trenches a damaged man and soon leaves her a widow. In a small, class-obsessed town, she raises her boy alone, working as a laundress, and gradually becomes aware that he is some kind of genius. As an intensely private young man, Charles signs up for the Navy. His escape from the tight, gossipy confines of Launceston to the colour and violence of war sees him blossom as he experiences not only the possibility of death, but the constant danger of a love that is clandestine. So yes, I'm intrigued to read this and see. I do enjoy a historical novel, so I think this World War I one might work for me. I have heard good things about Patrick Gale. Now, obviously, I couldn't say I'm reading books about motherhood and not read the book Motherhood by Sheila Heti. It's definitely one that tops all of the lists of recommendations of books about motherhood. This one is about a woman who is flipping a coin. So, in her late 30s, when her friends are asking when they will become mothers, the narrator of Heti's intimate and urgent novel considers whether she will do so at all. In a narrative spanning several years, casting among the influence of her peers, partner, and her duties to her forebears, she struggles to make a wise and moral choice. After seeking guidance from philosophy, her body, mysticism, and chance, she discovers her answer much closer to home. And I know lots of people really, really love this book, and it's one of those nothing happens books. But I believe she is flipping a coin, living her life by letting the coin decide. And so she is considering this large, life-changing experience or decision through this seemingly mundane. As I have said, so many people recommend it as the sort of quintessential book about motherhood, even though it's not about someone who is actually a mother. It is more early on in the process, the decision to become one. The Book of Mother by Violaine Huisman, which has been translated by Tosca Hopkins, is another one that I've seen a lot of people talking about and was apparently met by rave reviews. Catherine, aka Maman, smokes too much, drives too fast, laughs too hard, and loves too extravagantly, and her daughter Violaine wouldn't have it any other way. But when Maman is hospitalised after a third divorce and a breakdown, everything changes. Even as Violaine and her sisters look for their mother's return, once she's back, Maman's violent mood swings and flagrant disregard for personal boundaries soon turn the home into an emotional landmine. As the story of Catherine's own traumatic childhood and adolescence unfold, the pieces come together to form an indelible portrait of a mother as irresistible as she is impossible, as triumphant as she is transgressive. So as you can see, all of the mothers in these fiction books I'm looking at are not good mothers. I don't know if there are any books about good mothers. They probably wouldn't be particularly interesting. I bet the good mothers all die. I like looking at badly behaved women, older women. I think that is such a underrepresented person in books, and older women in general, but definitely the badly behaved ones more specifically. So now that was all of the fiction. Now I'll move on to some of the non-fiction I'm interested in. Some of these are memoirs. As I said, some of them are considering motherhood from a more political standpoint. I think those are the things I'm most interested in. Although I think one of these has some like science about pregnancy in it too. So the first one is another writer that people are always raving about that I haven't read yet, and that is A Life's Work by Rachel Cusk. I don't know if this is the correct place to start with Cusk, but it's maybe where I happen to begin. It is a funny, moving, brutally honest account of her early experiences of motherhood. When it was published in 2001, it divided critics and readers. One famous columnist wrote a piece demanding that Cusk's children be taken into care, saying she was unfit to look after them, and Oprah Winfrey invited her onto the show to defend herself. An education in babies, books, breastfeeding, toddler groups, broken nights, bad advice, and never being alone. It is provoked acclaim and outrage in equal measure. So I am definitely intrigued to read this. Clearly, it is not the perfect idea of motherhood. I do wonder if it was initially published today, if it would have the same outcry about it. I definitely think there has been a lot more sort of scummy mummy kind of stuff, and the difficulty, the reality, the nuance around motherhood has become more commonly discussed, I believe. I do always get frustrated when people say, it's like this now, without proof. So maybe I shouldn't say that, but it is a feeling that I have. Next we have Mothers, an essay on love and cruelty, which is by Jacqueline Rose. And this is a book about the argument that motherhood is the place in our culture where we lodge, or rather bury, the reality of our own conflicts. By making mothers the objects of both licensed idealisation and cruelty, we blind ourselves to the world's iniquities and shut down the portals of the heart. Mothers are the ultimate scapegoat for our personal and political failings, for everything that is wrong with the world, which becomes their task to repair. Moving between pop cultural references such as Roald Dahl's Matilda to insights on motherhood in the ancient world and the contemporary stigmatisation of single mothers, Jacqueline Rose delivers a groundbreaking report into something so prevalent we hardly notice. So as I said, I am interested in the concept of the mother and the sort of cultural presence that concept holds, and I think that this book is definitely going to be focused on that, much more so than anything else. Now, the one that I said was more scientific, we have Matrescence by Lucy Jones, which is subtitled On Pregnancy, Childbirth and Motherhood. And I think this one probably is the most relevant for people who are pregnant, have been pregnant, are planning to become pregnant. It's more about the actual physical reality and the social experience of pregnancy than the others, which are much more conceptual. But I think it will still be relevant for people who are more interested in the conceptual idea or in the politics of pregnancy. Drawing on her own experience of twice becoming a mother, as well as exploring the latest research in the fields of neuroscience and evolutionary biology, psychoanalysis and existential therapy, sociology, economics and ecology, Jones writes of the physical and emotional changes in the maternal mind, body and spirit, and shows us how these changes are far more profound, wild and enduring than have previously been explored or written about. Part memoir, part scientific and health reporting, part social critique, ecological philosophy, ecofeminism and nature writing, Matrescence is a kind of whodunit, ferreting out with the most nuanced, searing and honest observations why mothers throughout this heightened transition are at breaking point, and what the institution of intensive, isolated motherhood can tell us about our still dominant social and cultural myths. So I am more interested in those social and cultural myths, and to a certain extent the scientific look into motherhood. I hope that it won't be very reductive, is not the one, so it won't be so fundamentalist. I cannot think of the word I want, but I'm hoping that it won't be like motherhood is like this and motherhood is completely changes. I don't know how to describe what I mean, but I'm hoping that it will be nuanced and there will be a lot of difference allowed for, and it won't be saying that motherhood is such an innate thing in women. I'm sure it won't be, but I am intrigued to see what it does say about the research around this time of life. And then the final book on my list is another non-fiction. This is the most political non-fiction. This is more political than the other non-fiction. This is Belaboured, A Vindication of the Rights of Pregnant Women, and definitely something I'm very interested in at the moment, I think possibly because I know so many pregnant women. Written with a blend of wit, snark and raw intimacy, Belaboured is an impassioned and irreverent defence of the autonomy, rights and dignity of pregnant people. Lens shows how religious, historical and cultural myths about pregnancy have warped the way we treat pregnant people, when our representatives enact laws criminalising abortion and miscarriage, when doctors prioritise the health of the fetus over the life of the pregnant patient in front of them, when baristas refuse to serve visibly pregnant women caffeine. She also reflects on her own experience of carrying her 2 children and seeing how the sacrifices demanded during pregnancy carry over seamlessly into the cult of motherhood, where women are expected to play the narrowly defined roles of wife and mother rather than themselves. So I think there is a connection there, this idea of the myths about pregnancy and then the realities of pregnancy in the other non-fiction book, Matrescence. So I'm intrigued to read those two in conjunction with one another. Those are all the books about motherhood that I plan on reading this year, fingers crossed, hopefully. I'm not going to read them all together. I feel like that would overwhelm and cause a lot of burnout, but definitely there are books that I am interested in getting to at some point. There is also another one that I am currently reading that I literally just remembered, which is The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson, which is another non-fiction about motherhood, and her partner is genderqueer, and an exploration between gender and motherhood, and her memoir about becoming a mother and the experience of that for her. So I am actually partway through that one. I'm not sure where I put it. But those are all the books that I am thinking of reading this year. Do let me know in the comments down below if you have any that you think would fit my brand of books about motherhood. And I will see if I want to add them to my list. As I said, I'm not attempting to overwhelm myself, and I'm not attempting to read books about becoming a mother necessarily. They're more books about the concept, the cultural idea of the mother. So thank you very much for watching. If you are new here, my name is Rachel. Pleased to meet you, and I will see you again very soon. Bye bye.